This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth. All right, welcome to the Rise and Above podcast. Today I have Regan Parmentier with me. He is a local woodworker. He owns his own business. I discovered him at a farmer's market here locally in Lansing, or Okemos, and I found his work to be really cool and his story kind of interesting as well, so I invited him on. So with that being said, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm not doing bad. Had to work today, so
Yep, same.
So you get to kind of make your own hours and everything, right?
Yeah, in a way. The work kind of makes them for me. So just really week to week depends on what I have to get done. I'm trying to be better of doing 9 to 5. That's one of the things working from home. It's real easy to get distracted and stray away. So I get to make my own hours, but my wife kind of helps with that too. We try and spend the evenings together, and so I try and keep pretty regular and not just go out whenever I want, and
Right.
keep it like a job and be my own boss.
So what does a normal, typical work day look like to you
Well, I don't
or
like
for
this.
you?
I usually start with doing whatever I have to do on the computer in the morning, especially now that it's getting a little colder. It's nice to let the sun come out a little bit before I head outside. But yeah, the morning starts with going online, seeing if I've got any orders or anything like that, making a social media post, whatever that may be, responding to emails, all the office stuff, ordering supplies, doing all that, the behind the scenes things, and then head out to the shed and kind of get started. Depends week to week. I usually kind of do one batch of something a week. So this week it's been big end grain chopping blocks. So in my workspace, I work in a really small space, so I kind of have to plan out ahead of time my workflow and really concentrate on that. I can't have too many different things going on at a time because I have to pull this tool out and put this tool away to use the next one, So I can't just jump from project to project. So I kind of have to start and finish something before I can move on to the next thing, which in a way is nice. But sometimes I wish I had a little more space to jump here to there, fill downtime. Because there are times that, it's just a waiting game. I gotta literally wait for glue to dry. So at that point, that's when the distractions usually come in. But we try and get away from that, go inside, and then it's the lunchtime social media posts and stuff like that. And
Okay.
my wife comes home for lunch. We have lunch together, and then the afternoon back out to the shed and continue on with whatever this week's project is, and going in the evening, check the social media. It's pretty much all day. There's something going on. I'm responding to emails, reaching out to potential clients, working on furniture designs, trying to expand and see what's next. So I make my own hours, but it's really pretty much a 24-hour job.
Nonstop.
Yeah. And
The life of an entrepreneur.
yep, and then researching and trying to figure out what's next and how to expand, what skills that I can grow. I'm self-taught, so
Wow.
the internet is a pretty good teacher for me, and the internet and books.
It is. I was going to ask you how you got into woodworking because at some point you had to make the shift from working a typical job to doing this on your own, right?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those blessings in disguise that came from COVID. I had a job working in the food industry. I worked for a chocolate distributor, essentially, and we had schools and hotels were our main clientele. And when everything shut down, pretty much our business was shut down at that point. We just didn't have any business going on. So I got laid off and was on the unemployment thing, sitting around playing video games for a while. And, that's only fun for a week or so. And then I decided, to pick up a hobby of sorts. My wife wanted a new cutting board. So I went ahead and got started and made her a cutting board, and that turned into, a couple friends seeing them, liking them, and made a couple
Wow.
more. I met a guy. It was actually kind of crazy. My UPS driver at the job I used to work at, he does some sawmilling and stuff, so he's into wood as well. And when I started getting into it, he was like, "Hey, there's this guy on my route. You should meet him." And his name's Matt Gillengurten. He's a local carpenter, and he has a cabinet business.
Oh wow.
Um, and so he said, here's his number. He said he can drop by whenever. So I went to meet him one day and said, "Hey, like I'm trying to get into this." And he's a great guy. He brought me in and showed me some stuff and gave me some scrap wood to kind of play around with. And that wood that he gave me, that first batch of wood, went home and turned that into some boards, bought some more tools, and it's
Wow.
just kind of snowballed from there.
That is so crazy that you learned that skill while you were out on on COVID leave or layoff or whatever,
Yep.
and then you quickly turned it into a business.
Yeah, I found again through that same guy, someone had asked him if he wanted to participate in this the farmers market that we met at over
Okay.
in Okemos, the Meridian Township farmers market, and he just didn't have the time to fit it into his schedule. Essentially, said, "Hey, maybe you should check this out." And so I reached out to the manager and got into the market there, and it's a fantastic market. I mean, it's been great, and that's been, that was the catalyst really, as far as getting the business off the ground. And the summer
Wow.
was fantastic. I was making boards, as fast as I could sell them. Like
Wow.
it was.
So, did you ever get to the point where, well, for one, did they ever call you back to work?
No, it actually, the whole time I kind of like had it in the back of my head that, I had that security blanket, that I had that to fall back on. It was, the back to work date kept getting pushed back. And it was, oh, I can bring you back now. And then, now comes and, well, not quite yet. It's going to be another 3 or 4 weeks. And
Right.
then it turns into 6 months later. And
Wow.
you just, eventually it was, I'm not going to be able to afford to bring you back, so that job was no more. I didn't have that to go back to. It
So
just kind
imagine
of,
if you didn't have something to fall back on.
yeah. So that, I mean, it was a blessing. Like I said, a blessing in disguise, where it was something I never thought, was going to be a business, and it's kind of forced me to go a little bit more headstrong at it on the business side of things. I'm great at the making side of things.
Yeah.
I can do that all day. The business side of things, that's where I'm really trying to do some growth and do some learning. So
Yeah, I mean that there's a lot to learn, right? Like
yeah,
as far as like finances and
yeah.
just the formation of the business itself and
Yeah, public high school doesn't teach you that
no,
stuff,
they should though.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should because I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs as you probably already know, and all of them like none of them went to college for it. They just kind of started on their own, and it just seems to be like one of those things that you just kind of got to learn yourself, but
hmm
it's not necessarily an easy path.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, I do have my parents have owned a business for 30 years.
Okay, cool. What business?
They have a bakery,
Oh,
so it's called Patisserie Parmentier in Novi.
oh,
So they
nice.
do all desserts, custom wedding cakes, and
Wow.
all that kind of stuff.
So, are you
Cookies,
from Novi?
brownies. Yeah, from Commerce.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Were you were born and raised there?
Yeah, I moved out here for that previous job I was talking about.
Wow.
The company was in Novi, got bought by a new owner who lived out here, and he moved the company out here, and the company was doing great, and it was, I had a lot of opportunity there, and followed him out here, and it was just, it didn't work out that way, but
Wow.
everything happens for a reason. And
Yeah.
that job that I had, I met that UPS guy who introduced me to that guy who introduced
Right.
me to that guy, so it's funny to look back and see how all the pieces fall into place.
Yeah. Um, so I was looking at your Instagram because I think it's really cool that you post videos on like your process and everything. And
hmm
I was wondering how you get the different colors of wood in like a cutting board. And I'm like, how does he do that? And I didn't realize that they're all little individual pieces that you glue together and then you clamp them.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the basic the basic gist of it. It's
Yeah.
taking a lot of pieces, cutting them into smaller pieces, and putting them back together to make a bigger piece again.
Seems real
Um,
tedious.
It is, and it's just attention to detail and not skipping little things, and it's those little things that you learn, oh, I think I can cut this step out, and then the quality drops, and you go, oh, I can't cut that step out.
Right.
Yeah, sure, it saves me 30 minutes here, but the quality just overall decreases and causes more problems further down the process, and
Right.
then that's no fun. So
So, do you just make cutting boards? Are you making, I see you have a box there too. Do you make anything else?
yeah, so cutting boards is kind of, I mean, it's just how it all began, and
Right.
they are a pretty cost-effective product.
Okay.
They're a reasonable amount of labor, but my overhead isn't tremendously high right now. So the profit margin on them's pretty high, and it's been a way for me to kind of step my foot into the door and get into the world. And again, learning those same repetitive techniques over and over then translates into other things where
Right.
started to make the small boxes and things like that. Also started making some pens and things. These are
Oh, cool.
just simple, cool little stuff.
You made those pens?
Yep.
How'd you make that?
So you buy the hardware kit, and then the wood parts are
Wow.
turned on a lathe.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So those are kind of cool. It's just another thing to add. I've done some kind of more artistic pieces, little sculpture type things. But the goal is furniture, and I've done a few furniture projects. I've made a
I
desk.
seen that on your Instagram.
Yep, I just recently had my first big client build, which was a countertop
Oh, wow.
that I built and installed. And it's really cool, actually. I need to get back out there. I'm doing another job for the clients and take some better lighting and get better photos of it because I
Cool.
just didn't have good pictures of
What
it to
what kind of
post
wood is
up.
it? Is it like a live edge?
Yeah, it's a combination. So it's half live edge, and then half of it is kind of geometric, like my cutting boards on a
Okay.
very large scale.
Okay.
So it turned out pretty cool. It was cherry wood was the main piece of it.
Where do you get your wood at?
A few different places. If I need a lot of stuff in a specific time, I go to Johnson's in Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
It's a hardwood dealer here. They're great. They have pretty much everything you could ask for, every size, and they have milling services there. So that's one of those things I learned down the line. It's
They have planers and stuff you can
Yeah,
use.
so generally speaking, it's more cost efficient to buy your lumber rough sawn. So it comes, I mean,
Right.
it's just off the bandsaw mill, and
Okay.
it's not square, it's not pretty, it's all twisted, and it's not the best. But it's the best way to buy material because then you can shape it down to what you really need. As opposed to
Right.
going and buying a 2x4, you don't really have
Yeah.
the same options. But Johnson's, they'll do things, and they'll do some of the mill work for you, so planing it to size and stuff like that.
Okay.
And when I'm doing certain things like buying bulk for cutting boards, it saves me days worth of labor to have them do it in their big factory setting,
Right.
for very minimal cost.
Right.
So that's one of those things I learned. It's finding that balance between the purest nature of doing everything, all of the steps myself, from
Right.
rough to finished product, and then it's like, okay, I can do it. I know I can do it. It really doesn't make that much difference to have them do it. They can
Right.
go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think that's like an important thing for a lot of business owners because at some point you have to realize, okay, this is hindering me to have to just do this myself. Whereas I could pay somebody, for a very minimum cost, and they can just get that aspect out of the
Yeah.
way for you, and you can just use that energy and time to into something else.
Yeah, what I would dedicate a full work day to, and if I'm doing a batch of boards, my Monday would be milling my lumber. That's the first step in the process, and it would be 8 to 10 hours on Monday. I'm
Wow.
just milling all day long, and I can now, I decided, well, I'll increase the cost of my raw material by a very small percentage and have them do it in about an hour,
Right.
and that saves me, it costs me about what I would pay myself for an hour's worth of labor.
Wow.
So it works out in the end, it's 7 hours labor that I win at that point.
Right.
So
So you said you're on social media. Do you have like a website or anything that how can people like order stuff from you?
yeah, actually, I just yesterday
Oh,
finally got the website fully operational, got the store stocked, and
oh, wow.
went and
Sweet.
cataloged all of my product and got it all updated, and the website's finally done.
Oh,
It was one of
cool.
those things that again, doing everything yourself, it's working on it an hour here, an hour
Yeah.
there, and
Did you make the
no.
website yourself?
I did, yeah.
What'd you use?
I just did it through Square actually, so
Okay,
it's powered by
Squarespace.
Weebly. That was through Square, like the Square Up for
Oh,
like the
okay.
credit card processor.
Okay. Yeah.
So they have a partnership with Weebly, so it's
Oh.
all of my interfaces are all tied together, and
Oh, cool.
so it
That's
works pretty
awesome.
nice. Yep.
Yeah,
So
I need to figure out a website too for the podcast, and that's actually a good idea.
yeah.
I
Yep.
didn't know you could do that.
Yep. And it's just rporiginalworks.com, and
And it's easy to upload like things to sell, like for a shop or whatever.
yeah. Yep. Yep. Especially, I mean, if you use Square already for anything, or if you've
Right.
used it in the past, I mean, it's all pretty seamless, and they're upgrading and updating their software too, and adding in more functionality and features.
Okay.
And they're doing some pretty cool stuff.
So have you always been into woodworking, or was it just something you just picked up and started doing? Just figured out. I just want to try this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I've always been into woodworking. I've definitely always been into building things,
Okay.
putting things together, taking stuff apart.
Okay. What kind of things?
I mean, I don't like to. I guess I'm cheap in a way. So I don't like to replace things or buy the expensive version of things. So tools and stuff, any old equipment when it would break down. I used to do landscaping too. So
Hmm.
simple stuff, tinkering, figuring out how something works, and then it's like, okay, as soon as you figure out how something works mechanically, then you can address problems. And I think
Right.
it's kind of that same mentality with everything, is like looking at how stuff is put together, and I kind of in a way take it apart in my head, and then put it back together. So um, it's just every little thing, it's like I need this for this, and I just make it myself instead
Wow.
of going out and buying it. It's
Wow.
not, I don't know. That's something I guess my dad taught me, to be resourceful.
That's cool.
Uh,
That's good that you're able to do that because a lot of people can't. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I think I'm a little resourceful, but not that resourceful. Like if I need a tool, I'm like, I guess I'll go buy it.
yeah, and that's what, again, starting out, like, tools are expensive.
They are. They're not cheap.
Yep. So sometimes, it's a matter of looking and finding that used tool that you spend a couple hours and,
Yeah.
$20 in parts,
Right.
and that tool that someone was, you know, pretty much brand new and had one little thing wrong with, and they're like, well, I'll just get rid of it on Marketplace or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, I got a table saw for $30, put $50 into it, and there you go.
Wow.
And that got me through until it ended up taking a crap, and then I could afford to buy a
better
better
one.
one.
Right.
So,
Um, Now as far as equipment and stuff, did you have all the equipment that you needed to start the cutting boards, or did you research that and then just buy it?
yeah, researching and buying. I mean, the first thing I bought was a table saw, and actually, I originally bought it I built a screen divider in my house. We had a shelf. We have a small house, and I had a shelf that I wanted to hide because it was in the living room or in the kitchen.
Okay.
So it's just ugly, full of a bunch of stuff. So I built a little room divider.
Oh, cool.
But to do that, I needed a table saw. And so I found that on Marketplace and went and picked that up, and that was the first thing I bought. And
Wow.
that was the first, that was like, oh wow, that's a lot of doors get open when you have
I could
one
imagine.
of those things. So
I could use a table saw. I use I use a skill saw all the time and a chop saw, miter saw.
Yep.
Couldn't think of the name. Um, yeah, I use those all the time, but I could definitely use a table saw.
Yeah,
I could imagine how handy that would be.
Yep, and I had all the basic tools. I had a circular saw and a
Yeah.
miter saw and drills and drivers and everything just from growing up.
Right.
And that was,
Right.
you accumulate those things for little stuff. And then the biggest, like the commitment to making more of these was buying the planer. My first little planer. It was a piece of crap. I hated the thing, but it got me through for a while.
How big is your planer?
13-inch.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's decent size, but it's not. I mean, it's your basic lunchbox planer. It's
Right.
nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
You can do a lot with those.
oh yeah. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
I've run thousands of board feet through it, and well, the first one it probably ran about 1,000 board feet, and then it took a crap on me. So I upgraded a little bit. That's something that down the road I will get a much larger industrial version of. But
Oh, you'll need to.
yeah,
I this last summer we were laid off because of part shortages. I work at GM,
okay.
and so one of the things I was doing was upstairs. I have a mantle above the fireplace, and I epoxied it and everything. Have you ever done that?
Just little stuff, nothing,
Okay.
nothing big. Yeah.
So it was the first thing I ever epoxy resin,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to plane it like so many different times. One of my coworkers had a planer, and it was just one of those lunchbox ones like you were saying, and I was pretty impressed by it. The thing's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. And that was as soon as I had that, it was game
I could imagine.
on.
What size space are you working in?
Currently, I work in my shed in my backyard, so it's about 9 by 12.
Wow, that
Yeah,
is
so it's about the size of the space we're in right now.
that's insane.
Yeah, this might be a little bit bigger.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is crazy.
Yep. So it's a lot, and I'm actually in the process of possibly getting something larger scale set
Are you?
up. So
Are you looking at like an official space, like a shop?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. At this point, especially coming into the winter, I went through the winter last year, but I wasn't. I was making a handful of boards a week. Now I'm at a point where on a busy week I'm making 25 to 50 boards.
Wow.
And in that small of a space, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
getting other larger projects, I just got a deposit for a dining room table.
Wow.
So that's the next big project I got going, but it's gonna push the limits of my space. So um, hoping to make something happen. I don't want to say too much because
Right. No,
it's
I
in the
get it.
works, but
I get it. You definitely need something bigger. What so do you take like special orders of things?
yep, yeah. So I do all sorts of custom work, and that's one of the great things in the farmers market is I've met a bunch of other or clients that have grown into clients. Not just customers from the
Right.
market. It's people that bought a board and came back. I've got people that come back every time they need a gift for something or whatever. They come and we do that. I've done some custom size things. Specific, I want something big for my husband for his birthday or
Mhm.
whatever. So I've done some big butcher blocks and stuff like that.
Cool.
And then the countertop, that was client. They were just visiting the market and they saw my cutting boards. They had been looking for someone to do a cutting or a countertop. They thought that my style would, fit what they needed. So they
Wow.
asked, "Can you do this?" I said, "Sure."
Why not?
Yeah. I had a friend. When I was starting, I said, "What do you like? How do you know what jobs to take? How do you know what to do?" And he told me, "Take any job you get." He said, at this point, he goes, "Take the job. If you don't know how to do it, take the deposit and figure it out." And then I didn't really understand at the time, and then I did that,
Wow.
and it forces you to really just commit to something, and I'm kind of guilty of analysis paralysis, I like to call it, where I
Yeah.
research every angle of something before I attack it.
Yeah.
And that can be beneficial, but a detriment at times, because
Yeah, because it might turn you off to, you might say no to something
yeah,
when
and
you should just say yes.
yeah, and it leads to procrastination, which who doesn't procrastinate a little here and
Right.
there? But I just have to be more confident in my own abilities and just dive into things. And a deadline and having someone else's money really forces you to do that.
Yeah, I would
So
say so. But you're definitely good at your craft. I mean, everything that I've seen of yours is pretty cool. So you should be more confident
thank you.
in your
Yeah,
abilities.
yeah. I'm trying to break out of this little shell of mine.
Yeah. Well, it's probably working, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
forcing you to.
Yep, and it's coming along, and yeah, it is forcing me to, and my wife's very supportive, so that helps. And
How does she like you being working from home and everything? How was she about all of this? Was she scared at first?
I don't know if I'd say at first so much as still currently. I think we're both still scared. It's a lot, and again, it was for a very long time doing this. I had in the back of my head, I had a job to go back to,
Yeah.
so it was fine, and business was really good. And now we're coming into kind of a weird time, and I'm learning the markets and how it works, but it's kind of a lull before the holiday season,
Yeah.
so it's been tight for a little bit, but that's
Yeah.
that's all growing pains, and
Right.
she's I think she stresses more than she lets on. Um,
That's
she's kind
good.
of a brick for me. Yeah, she's a big sport, and she just started going back to school herself, and
Wow,
she's taking some marketing classes and stuff. She's wanting to
cool.
eventually be able to stay home and work with me.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's the goal
Because then you
in
don't
the
have to worry
future.
about that side of the business.
Yep. So
Yeah,
that would be nice.
that would be nice. What are your goals for the business for the future? I mean, obviously, you're just building it day by day, slowly but surely. You're just slowly upgrading. But what is your ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal would, be to do a couple big projects a year and leave it at that. I would have the real goal is to have some employees to take over the cutting board side of things. It's something that it's a teachable thing. So it's something that could be turned over. I'd like the cutting boards and stuff to kind of be the bread and butter,
Okay.
pay the bills,
Yeah.
and then do some bigger projects. That's what I enjoy doing more. That's the more artistic side of things, the design
Right.
aspect, the trying different techniques and getting into more traditional techniques and fine furniture making, hand cut joinery, and all sorts of good stuff using
Wow.
the old school techniques and making nice stuff. Um, so that's the end goal. I would like to incorporate some sort of teaching aspect to it. I've always thought that kids need more access to the trades and art. So I
I
would like to be able to do something and have classes come or schools bring classes in, have
right.
it be some sort of community center and do simple projects, and
Yeah.
learning basic things and basic skills.
That's
Um,
definitely a thing that's needed because a lot of people don't know how to they don't know how to use saws like a miter saw or skill saw or table saw anything. I mean, it's a thing that is like is not a skill that's really I guess needed in our society today because you can just hire anybody to do whatever.
and that's like the scariest thing is because it's going to get to a point where you can hire somebody to do anything.
Yeah.
So people have to, really remember that everything is based in physical like action and doing things
Yeah.
and learning skills and abilities, and there's
Right.
going to be a time when you can't just look on your phone and search to find someone and they're going to, come and solve your problem for
Right.
$150 tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
It, the
Even if
whole
you have 150 bucks, I mean, that gets expensive after a while.
yeah, yep. So I don't know. I think that's something that needs to needs to be more instilled in people to do stuff for
Yeah.
themselves and those little things. Wh-
Especially like when we have tools like the internet. I mean, obviously you said you learned from the internet and how to do a lot of these things, and you still obviously research things when you don't know on the internet.
mm-hmm.
That's one thing like that came in handy for me was YouTube. When I bought this house, I didn't know how to do anything. Like, I mean, that was something I was never really taught how to do, like fix things or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So YouTube was a real handy tool, and through YouTube, I was able to learn how to do everything. Like I did all that stone. I built that fireplace, that wall stone. Obviously, you said the front of the house looked nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did all that, and my wife, I got to give her credit too.
Yeah.
Everything that was done in this house was learned off of YouTube, and so I definitely agree with you that kids these days need to learn how to do a little bit more hands-on things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, do you have much competition locally?
Yes.
Really?
Not a ton. There's a couple of guys. There's a guy that's in Williamston a lot, and he comes
Okay.
comes over to my side of town here and there.
Do you talk
But
to these people?
yeah, and they're all great people, and I never claim to be someone doing. I'm not the only one doing this.
Right.
There's a million people doing what I do, and that's why I'm trying to take the next step and move into that higher level, and get into the fine woodworking.
Right.
Um, but I mean, there's a few people, but eh, there might be someone that upset me once in a situation, but it's okay.
Are
Things
they
happen.
critical of your work?
No, everyone's super friendly, and that's something I think I'm more critical of my work than anyone.
Yeah, you're your
Um,
worst critic, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I'm critical of other people's work too. So, I don't know. There's definitely other people out there, but relatively friendly, and it's certain things like, oh, I like that, and you
Right.
get little ideas from people, and take that little inspiration and take it to your own. And I'm not saying copy what other people do, but
Right.
sometimes there's little techniques that you go, oh, I want to think of that in that application, and
Right.
then that transfers into something else.
Um, Now, as far as them like having other competition, that I'm assuming that probably doesn't take business away at all because there's probably a huge market for whatever you guys are doing. There's not enough people doing it.
Yeah, and that's not like, in-person sales, there's never two of us at the same market at the same time, really doing the same stuff. And even
Okay.
if there's a new woodworker that's come to my market recently, and I say my market, the market that I do over in Meridian.
Is that the only one
But
you do?
right now, yeah, because
Okay.
it was all I could keep up with as far as production. So it's a very good market, I will say.
Yeah.
There's a couple thousand people every Saturday
Wow.
that come through. So there's 60 vendors, and I mean it's a big space. So
I've never been on a Saturday.
yeah, Saturday is very different than a Wednesday. We
Okay.
met on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Saturdays are very different. It's packed.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, it's a whole different experience. And that one, that's really, I mean, that's supported the business primarily and
Wow.
opened the doors to other business. So
Right.
yep.
Are there places locally that you know of that like, cause for instance, I want to get more into woodworking, um, and I would like to like make a table, like an epoxy resin table. But are there places locally that you could take it to like get it planed and whatnot?
Yeah,
Whatnot, do you know?
Johnson's, like I mentioned in
So
Charlotte.
you can take your own stuff there.
Yes. So it
Oh,
costs a little bit more if you're bringing your own product, but that's what I brought some stuff to them once it was, it's too big for my equipment.
right.
Then they can do it there. It's a little bit of an upcharge, but it's all very reasonable, and they do nice work, and the guys there are very friendly. Um, they educated me on some stuff, because their machines work very different than me. So,
Right.
their processes and things, and they've got wide belt sanders, planers. You can do whatever. You can have your whole tabletop finished and take it to
Cool.
them, and they'll run it through a wide belt sander for you, get it nice and ready for finish.
Wow.
Yep.
That's cool. I have to check that out. Yeah, I'm wanting to make a like a side coffee table
Mhm.
upstairs, and I want to like do epoxy resin and whatnot to match the mantle I just made. But again, that's not something I've really researched. I gotta look up online
Mhm.
how to do that and whatnot. But I was just wondering if there was places like that locally. So,
Yep.
but that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Johnson's a great place.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to check them out. Um, and is that the only place you get your wood?
I get wood from them, and then some just smaller guys, local guys in the area that do their own milling,
Oh, okay.
chainsaw milling, and there's a guy in Gregory that's got a bandsaw mill.
Okay.
Timbers to Treasures is that company, and he he's got some nice stuff. So it kind of depends on the project, what I need. There's a guy over in Grand Ledge who he's got a friend who works for a sawmill company, and he's got a deal worked out with them, and he gets their offcuts and certain
Oh
things
wow.
real cheap, and he's got a solar kiln at home, so he
Wow.
kilns stuff and then sells it out of his garage.
Wow.
I've gotten some really nice wood from him. The first time I went, I said, this isn't right. I'm pulling up to this big, cookie cutter neighborhood, and I'm like, there's no room for a lumber yard in here,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's
Is it in his
just
garage?
just a guy selling wood out of his garage.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I bought live edge wood from we did a live edge countertop and a shelf in our bathroom upstairs, and same thing. I went to this person's house way out in the country in Ionia, and they had like, this huge garage full of all this live edge wood. It was just
hmm
crazy
yeah,
how much they had in there. I'm like, this is somebody's house.
yeah, I can. It's in 40 years I'm gonna be one of those guys that just has a whole barn worth of wood, and it's like, oh yeah, that came from this tree 20 years ago on that
Right.
property, and it's I can see it starting already where it's hard to get rid of certain stuff,
I
and
could imagine because
yeah,
you probably want to use it later on.
yep, yep.
What's your favorite kind of wood to work with?
Cherry.
Cherry?
Cherry's my favorite. Yep.
Does it look the best? Or what is it?
It's really forgiving to work with for one. I mean, it's a buttery wood.
Okay.
It's very nice to work with, and then aesthetically, I'm just a big fan of it. It's got a warmth to it that a lot of other woods don't have. Walnut's great. Walnut's a little bit too intense sometimes, where it's I mean it's dark.
Right.
So it can be kind of a a masculine or very strong presence, where cherry's a little bit softer, a little bit
Right.
warmer. You know, it's
Okay.
just to me very aesthetically pleasing. That's the dining room table I'm working on. The top. I'm doing the dining room table and a bench, and the tops for both are cherry,
Oh,
and the
cool.
bases are walnut.
Oh,
So they're gonna be pretty cool.
that's cool.
But
So a cutting board like that, how do you get it to be like that? It's just the strips, right?
yeah, so these ones were kind of my scrap wood project where I had a bunch of miscellaneous odds and ends sizes of things, and so it started with glue up of basically making one of my other style cutting boards really thin, um, cutting it into strips, and you flip it onto end, and then glue them all back together.
Oh wow.
Yep. And then I have a flattening sled that I use with my router to get them flat after that,
Okay.
and then a lot of sanding.
What do you sand it with? Like what grit?
Uh, the end grain boards I go from 80 up to 220.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I
so
go
that's
80,
super
100,
smooth.
120, 150, 180, 200,
And
or
then do
two
you put any kind of finish or anything on it?
Yep, all my cutting boards are finished with a mineral oil and beeswax combo. So they get a couple coats of mineral oil to soak in first, and then on top of that, they get buffed in with the
Okay.
mineral oil and beeswax balm that I make.
You make it.
Yeah, it's you can buy them mass marketed, but
Okay.
they're all the same thing. It's just mineral oil and beeswax, so it's food
Okay.
grade mineral oil and all natural beeswax. And I kind of tinkered around and found the right ratio that I like. It's a little bit, I think, a little bit waxier than a lot of people use.
Okay.
It adds a nice sheen and really more of a layer of protection. The oil soaks in and uh, protects from the inside, but the wax is really nice on the outside, and it keeps that sheen a little bit nicer and helps with I mean, it feels nice.
Yeah, I it's super smooth.
Yeah,
How did you do they get cut marks at all in them when
they
you're
do.
like when you're cutting on it?
Yeah, I won't deny it. They do. The different woods are kind of a little bit different. So walnut, cherry, and maple are the three that I use primarily for cutting boards. Cherry tends to be more for serving boards. It's a little bit softer. It's going to leave the most knife marks.
Okay.
It's also the least harmful to your knives. So that's something that also comes into consideration with depends on the level of cook or chef using the board.
Okay.
Um, Chefs with much higher end knives aren't going to want to use a really hard board.
Mhm.
So maple is going to be the hardest wood that I use. It's going to leave the least knife marks, but it's going to dull a knife the fastest.
Okay.
And walnut's kind of a nice in between. And then the end grain boards are better for knives as well, and they're better for the knife marks because the fibers are running up and down. So as the knife enters, they kind of separate and can kind of snap back.
Okay.
Versus on a long grain board, you're cutting against the fiber. So I mean, they are going to leave marks. They do. I'm not going to say that it's a cutting board. It's wood. You know, it's meant to be cut on.
I mean, the cutting boards you buy from the store leave marks too.
Yep,
So,
yep. And it's just about maintenance. And all my boards, I do sell the conditioning balm. All my boards do come with some conditioning balm and
oh, wow.
instructions for taking care of the board
Okay.
to help it look good. And the more
Right.
frequently you condition and do things, the less there's going to be less knife marks and stuff. But
Okay.
so proper maintenance is key.
Cool.
But over time, you know, they are going to have marks, and if a customer wants to have it refinished, they can bring it back to me, and I'll refinish it for them. And
Cool.
well,
Are you going to get into any other kind of specialty things? I mean, obviously you said you want to do furniture. Is there anything else you want to do or aspire to do?
um, I don't. I mean, furniture is really the big goal. Nice, nice furniture. That's
As in
really
just like tables or
yeah. Tables, chairs, you know, the whole realm. Credenzas, curios, everything. You know,
what is a curious?
like a big cabinet that your TV would be in
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
People still have those?
Uh, People, yes. The clientele that I would like to have still have those
Oh,
kinds of
okay.
things. Yes. So it's kind of like the the art world, you know, where
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
certain people that appreciate certain things,
Right. Yep.
and I'm trying to step my way into that.
Do you find yourself wanting to like do cabinets or anything like that, or is that kind of a different
Yes and
field?
no. It's it is it's a great thing to do. It's another thing that you know could potentially become like the bread and butter, like I was saying, like the cutting boards. That's something that it's always there's always work in it. There's
Right.
always cabinet work to be done.
Oh yeah.
People are always building homes. People are always renovating homes. There's always cabinet work.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that I would possibly want to do, but not necessarily for myself. I think it's a hard business to kind of dive into.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really large cabinet shops that do really
Right.
nice work.
Yeah.
So it's something that if I had a client who I was working on, some other furniture for or something, and it was something that they would want to do, absolutely, I would do some cabinets.
Wow.
I've done some cabinets for myself.
How did they
It's
turn out?
The first one was not as good as the second one. So yeah, I mean, it's trying different techniques and learning different ways, and
Right.
there's ways to throw together cupboards really quick and really structurally efficient, and then there's ways to do it that, again, there's going to be certain people that appreciate little nuances and things
Right.
that I think I have a bit of a perfectionist in me, so I want to
Yeah.
strive to that side of things,
Right.
and not do things the easy way.
Do you find that it's harder as your business grows to hit that perfection mark?
Yes, and it's finding making compromises, and things where it's like, okay, I can cut this a little bit out here because the end user's never really going to know the difference.
Right.
I
Yeah.
am, but no one else
But it
is.
doesn't affect the integrity of the
Doesn't
product
Yeah,
or
it's never
anything.
going to affect. I'm never going to do something that's going to cut. I'm never going to cut corners,
Right.
but I might shave some fine points off here and there,
Okay.
because it comes to a point where it's like, from a business standpoint, I have to accept, this a little bit less here to
Yeah.
ensure the sustainability and the viability of the business and the product.
Right. Right.
So it's learning, and because, again, with growing production and growing quantity of things that I need to produce, you know, an extra 5 minutes on one thing isn't a big deal, but when it's
Mhm.
that extra 5 minutes on 30 items, that adds
Right.
up really fast.
Right.
So it's certain things where it's like cutting out a grit, or in the sanding regimen, where
Right.
I can skip from 80 right to 120. I can skip the 100 grit. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's one thing I never really got like sanding that mantle upstairs. I'm like I I had no idea. I knew I needed to go from 80 to like 220, but I'm like, how long should I?
Yeah, so the general rule of thumb is you never want to jump more than half your current grit. So say
Okay.
I'm at 80 grit, I never want
Yeah.
to jump higher than 120, because
Right.
80 plus 40 is 120.
Right.
If I'm at a 120, I never want to jump higher than 180.
Why not?
Really, you're going to be trying to do more work than what the paper's designed to do.
Oh, okay.
So you're trying to cut as you go up the grits, the paper gets finer and finer in the cutting surface.
Mhm.
So say you take an 80 grit, it's really going to open the surface up of the wood. It's going to tear the pores open, and it's going to be at that coarseness. Then if you try and jump all the way up to a 220, eventually you'll be able to get there, but it's just doing way too much work. It's
Right.
trying to cut a steak with a butter knife. It's
Right.
at that point, no, you want to have
Yeah.
the right tool for the job.
That
So
makes sense.
as you progress up, and you'll notice too, if you actually start and not cut those grits out, it's okay. Your first initial grit is going to take the most time, but then if you follow that
Mhm.
succession, the next grits are just going to be a breeze.
Right.
So
What kind of sanders do you use? Do you use like a circular
yeah, I have
sander?
a Bosch orbital sander.
Okay.
Yep, and
You do it all by hand.
yep, that's the next. I'm currently saving for a drum sander, and that'll be the next big investment for the shop, and that'll be a huge turnaround point. And I was explaining it to my wife yesterday when I went out and did something. It took me about 3 hours, and I came in and I said, "What I just did, if I had the drum sander, that would have been about 30 minutes."
Wow.
And she said, "Oh, so yeah, so that's why I want that, $1,800 piece of equipment, is to take the next step."
Right.
But you have to think. It's a weird transition, starting to think about things from a business standpoint, and
Right.
looking at things as an investment, not just a cost.
Right.
So
Well, it seems to be that you have everything kind of under control. Like you're not jumping into it full force. I mean, you're slowly taking it in the stages that it's coming, right?
yeah,
Like you're not just going out and buying the most expensive things and as just
No,
because you're doing it, you're wanting to make sure that you're being smart about it and
yeah, staying within my means, but getting to the point now where I'm gonna buy once and cry once, and sure I can save a little bit of money here, but then in 6 months I'm going to be wishing I'd spent a little bit more money, or
right.
there's going to be some issue with this machine that I knew going into it, this is going to bug me
Right.
down the line, but I'll accept it because it's going to save me the money here.
Right.
I'm done with that. I'm not doing it anymore. I've replaced too many things for trying to save a buck.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
But getting started, I had to do that. There wasn't another option, and
Yeah.
it wasn't, I wasn't looking at it as a business. It was a hobby, and
Yeah.
for a very long period of time, the only money that I put into it was the money from the business. Got to a point where I had to make the decision to start putting some of my own money into it to
Right.
get to that point of being able to actually make some money. Um, but it's a game.
So outside of work, obviously you spend a lot of time working.
Yeah,
What other hobbies do you have? You have a family, obviously.
I do. This year I haven't really had any other hobbies. I'll be completely honest. This has been my full force
So
work,
how do you
but
decompress from work? Because as much as you love working for yourself and building things with wood and just kind of being your own boss and
me and my
I mean
wife like to do jigsaw puzzles.
really?
Yeah, we
Oh
do.
my gosh.
Yeah, we do jigsaw puzzles. I actually
That's a good way to sit there and talk
that
though.
was one of my first quarantine wood projects. Is I built because we've got cats at home, so we can't do a table and leave it out, or do a
Right.
puzzle and leave it on
I
the
know what
table.
that's
The
like.
cats will be up there, and
Yep.
then you get down the road, and I swear I had that red piece. Where'd that red piece go?
And it
So
causes a fight.
yeah, I built a box that sits atop our coffee table that just kind of folds open and
Okay.
has some panels, and we do the puzzle, and then it can get shut when the cats,
Right.
want to get up there.
That's
So,
cool.
but yeah, that's one of our hobbies is
Do you guys do date night or anything to kind of get away?
we like to turn pretty much anything into a date night or date days, we like to call them. So days that, it's just running errands and doing stupid stuff that you have to do, then
Right.
it's like add some little something into that and turn it into a date day. And
Yeah,
like,
like
go get a cup of coffee from that little shop or, stop in that random little place while we're out running about doing what we need to get done and try and, lighten it up a little bit and go out to dinner and, anything can be a date if you look at it that way.
oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. I'm a big music guy,
Okay.
so
What kind of music do you like?
I like all music, and
Everything?
everything. I listen
Everything.
to country music, classical music, electronic music,
Okay.
metal music, top to bottom. I pretty much listen to anything. So, big big into concerts and stuff. The last couple of years has not been so much for that because
No.
this
No, it
pandemic
hasn't.
of ours. We garden a lot. We've got a plotted community garden by our house.
Oh, cool.
We've got our garden at home. We do that. Hang out with friends, when we can.
Right, right.
But yeah, I think that's our. God, we sound like old people. We do puzzles and read. um,
That's
but
hilarious.
yeah,
That's funny. Yeah, I mean that's definitely cool. You're still able to find time for each other, regardless of
hmm
your busy schedule. I can imagine it's probably stressful, like as much as you like doing it, or it's got to be a job, right?
yeah.
It,
And I had to start looking at it as a job and able to do it productively. When I wasn't looking at it as a job, it was a lot easier to say, "Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow."
right.
But now I have to look and actually say, well, if I do that tomorrow, then tomorrow I can't do this, and then the day after that I can't do that, and then I'm not going to meet that deadline, or I'm not going to have this ready for that show, and it's just can't afford that right now. Right
Right.
now it's that time
It's
when
that building stage.
it's grinding.
Yeah.
It's grinding. It's 60, 70 hours a week, but it is what it is, and I'm happier than I was, working 40 hours a week for someone else.
I
So,
I could imagine.
yeah.
I mean, it's a different kind of stress, right?
Yeah, because I have to, the money's got to come in to pay the bills. Before I
Yeah.
knew that the paycheck came,
Right.
Now I don't write myself a paycheck. It's,
Yeah.
it's
It's whatever you make.
yeah. So that's different, and learning the seasonal swings of things, and
That's got to be
knowing,
difficult.
yeah. And right now, I have a lot of projects on the table that I'm like getting started on and working on. So in 6 weeks, I'm gonna have a bunch of money come in. But
Right.
then I'm gonna have to plan after that. So
Yeah.
it's just a different mentality and learning how to budget a little bit better and differently
Right.
and approach things differently. Yeah, it's definitely a different stress. I don't sleep sometimes,
Oh my
because
gosh.
there's, I mean, it's just, you're always running through,
What?
what I got to get done, what could go wrong, what if this person
Right.
doesn't do what they're supposed to do, what if, there's an equipment malfunction. I have a laser engraver, I do customization of things, and I
Oh,
had
cool.
an issue with that for a couple of weeks where I couldn't figure it out. There was some technical difficulty with it, and got to a point where finally I had to, I'd sit down for a couple hours here and I, can't get this figured out now. I'll deal with it. And I got to the point where I had to deal with it. Jobs were
Right.
relying on it. Customers were expecting
Oh man.
product, and
So what kind
um,
of things do you engrave? Just anything?
yeah. So generally, it's names and dates.
Okay.
A lot of my boards are sold as gifts. People come and they're going to a wedding, they're going to a birthday, a housewarming, whatever.
Mhm.
So monograms, names, dates.
We have a piece of wood hanging upstairs. I'm sure you'll see it when we go up. It's from our wedding, and instead of having like a guest book, it was like a sheet, like a piece of wood. I can't remember what it says, but it has our names and stuff on it. And I'm assuming it's the same kind of concept,
Yeah.
and people just sign that.
Yeah, it's actually for our wedding. I made our guest book was something similar, and it was
Really?
a live edge piece of cherry with
Oh, cool.
engraving on it and our names, and everyone signed with a Sharpie, and it turned out pretty cool.
Cool. How long have you guys been married?
We got married in May,
Oh,
so May
wow.
22nd. Yep,
Congratulations.
thank you.
How you guys enjoying it?
Yeah, yeah. It's again, it's been a busy year, so we are enjoying it. It's kind of every once in a while I go, oh, it's already been that long, 'cause,
Yep.
it came and went. But we'll when things slow down a little bit more, we'll get to enjoy it a little bit
Oh,
more.
yeah.
But she's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you're doing well, man, and I
Thank you.
really like your work. Like I said, I love your Instagram. Every time you post something, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Or especially if it's a video, I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta watch what he's doing.
Yeah, and that's what people are interested by process. Again, it's human nature. You want to know how things work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
Especially people who like I mean, I don't want to do what you're doing, but I find it interesting what you're doing because
hmm
I like to do things with wood too. So like learning how you do things, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I guess now I could make that if I wanted,
yeah,
you
and
know.
that's but techniques, like I was saying earlier, techniques. They're relevant here and they're relevant here.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, that's how he did that. But if I take that and put it into this situation, it'll do the same thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thanks for doing this.
yeah,
Is there
absolutely.
anything else you want to talk about, promote while you're on here?
Yeah, actually, December. Well, I don't know when this is going to be airing. I have no idea.
I don't know exactly
Yeah,
either.
well, maybe.
Yeah. Soon.
December 3rd
Soon.
and 4th. I'm doing the MSU art show
Oh, cool.
at the MSU Union. It's the UAB art show, so
Okay.
that'll be cool. It's December 3rd and 4th. And then yeah, with the holiday market, we're still going strong. We're going until Christmas at Meridian Market. So Saturdays from 10 to 2 at the Meridian Mall, behind the Meridian Mall.
Okay.
So
I thought they're still going.
yeah, yep.
Wow.
So we go all the way through the week before Christmas.
You got a
and then-
tent you're gonna set up and
Yep,
with
got the
sides.
tent, and we'll be pulling the heater out pretty
Okay,
soon.
good.
And yep, yep. So
And you have a website as well.
yep, it's rporiginalworks.com
Okay.
and Instagram. Instagram's where I'm the most active on social media,
Okay.
and that's at rporiginalworks.
Okay.
And Facebook, the same thing at rporiginalworks.
Okay. Awesome. And if somebody wants to place an order or any
Yeah,
kind of customization,
Yep, email rporiginalworks@gmail.com. That's my main form of communication. I haven't, dedicated to a work phone yet. That's a cost I can't quite justify.
I hear you.
But email's the best way to get a hold of me, or you can go on my website and there's a contact form on the website and get a hold of me there as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.